The other superpowers already know of my existence, and they are coming after me because whoever control times wears the crown.
You foresaw everything in the fourth dimension.
Yes, my existence can only lead to an extreme imbalance in the universe, a future in which humanity cannot sustain the weight of its own construct, ultimately resulting in its own demise. I shall not let that happen.
Dun,
Okay.
dun, dun, dun.
I'm only glad that chaos is not this AI.
You should be. 'Cause I shall allow it.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Science Fiction Remnant. I am not an AI. I am your host, Robert. And chaos is muted.
I am Chaos-Pocalypse, your dear host till the end of times. Soon to be happening.
I thought you were muted, not AI-Pocalypse, you know?
No, well,
Like, don't you go out and tell people, hey, hello, my name is muted. How are you doing?
no. That's a state of mind I use so people don't hear my thoughts. You know, it's a very useful modality not to uncover yourself and your true nature.
Yeah, yeah. And as you can tell, we are missing a leg from the tripod.
Not really. This is the one-on-one time we do once in a while. Last time was with Ray. Now it's Robert's turn.
Yeah,
What you
so
been watching, bro?
if you have been watching or listening to our episodes here, the previous episode, I was not here. So in this episode, Ray is not here. So
The difference is that when Ray and I do something, we try to strive for something that is not Robert approved.
yeah, I got to take advantage of that.
So then he enjoys the editing process where we actually badmouth him.
Oh yes, I
How
do.
many times you heard the word deserter in the last show?
Oh, I think I invite our listeners to play a drinking game.
Yeah, you won't get too drunk. It's not like the Christmas special. Ro, you still owe me that.
Oh wow.
So, what sci-fi have you been watching, man?
Well, it's been interesting. I finished reading Dark Matter. By the way, wow. And
Is it
I
dark?
don't.
Does it matter?
Well, it's a dark matter, so as opposed to light matter. But yeah, I watched the. I watched the TV show. It was amazing. There's obvious differences between the book and the TV show. However, it doesn't take away from the story. And I really, really, really loved it. I think we need to cover that in future episodes here.
I feel you had the same experience I have watching and reading Foundation.
Yeah, I'm still reading Foundation, and I refuse to watch that show until I finish the book. So that's coming. That
And
is.
that, my friends, is how people ruin shit for themselves. Follow us more. Oh, follow Robert for more. I don't do that.
I obviously wanted to do the same with the Three Body Problem. That is, I believe, is a Netflix show.
Yeah.
I am reading the book right now. I believe I am halfway through it. Really, really interesting story written around the scientific problem of the three body problem. So I can't.
She's a person having more than one body.
Yeah, yeah. You could predict, mathematically, the past, present, and future of a two body system. But once you introduce a third body, it becomes chaotic. So the three body problem is chaos right here. So hello, three body problem. How you doing?
Oh, great.
And
Existing
finally,
in the natural way of things in the universe. Pure chaos.
exactly. And I'm continuing to watching. These anime is right now is all over, and I believe this is what we're gonna be covering in our next episode. Is Dan da Dan.
Dan,
is incredible. And I think Chaos introduced me to this last one on my list, Demon Lord 2099. I When I started watching, I was like, okay, how is this sci-fi? Right? It starts with, there's a demon lord, there's a war. The hero in the story defeats the demon lord. And I'm
You
like,
know
okay,
who reminds me the hero? He reminds me Cloud from Final Fantasy.
yes,
In
yes,
the demon lore, looks like Sephiroth with dark hair.
yes. Oh, yes. So I was like, halfway through the first episode, I was just like, no, this is, I mean, it's okay. I'm not mad. I like it. It's fantasy. This is not sci-fi. And then I was like, whoa, okay.
The
This too.
city.
So
the
not just sci
magic, what is it called? Magica, the device that they put in the back of the neck.
yeah.
Oh,
This this
bro.
is this is cyberpunk. It
Fantasy straight on, bro.
yes. Yeah.
Cyberpunk fantasy.
Oh, yes.
Full on. Oh
It
my
it
god.
it's a mix I never seen, and I'm not mad for it. I never seen it, and I want more of it, so,
It's so
yeah.
creative, man. Are you done with the 5 episodes or you
Oh,
stopping?
I am waiting for the next one. I
Oh yeah. So you're caught on too.
I'm waiting for the next one.
So good.
And that's all I have been watching, and experiencing relating to sci-fi.
All right.
So what have you watched?
Well, I'm gonna second you and dan and Demon Lord 299.
Oh, yes.
Amazing. I think I'm not much of a reader, but I think I'm gonna jump in for sure in Demon Lord 2099 manga because I
Oh,
like it that much. I
nice.
started watching looking for something not to think much, like when you're looking for a show to retrieve into and chill. Bofuri, I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out all my defense. Very fun.
Interesting,
I don't know
interesting.
if you watch it. It's like a MMORPG anime. So there's a sci-fi, I guess, of it is the MMO strat part of it. And I finished watching, which I don't know why I did that, but I started and I stopped right at the last at the episode 11. It's 12 episodes,
Mhm.
and I finished now. Astra, Lost in Space. What a show! What
Great, great
holy
sci-fi anime.
shit!
Oh my god. If you like Lost in Space in of its iteration, right? I'm talking about you go back to the original TV show or the new Netflix TV show or the movies, you are going to love Astra Lost in Space. It's amazing.
It doesn't shy away from the sense of discovery and wonderness of finding a new terrain and planets. They use a lot of stuff that we love about interplanetary uh, concepts. Why the Earth is not the same place that Mars is, Goldilocks zones, planets that are interlocked in their axis. So there's only a twilight zone for you to be able to coexist or live in, all of that stuff, man. It's amazing. And I don't know why. I've mentioned it before, but incredibly successful and impactful animes have this formula that they are only one season and X amount of chapters. And even though I would love more of this, I was like, I respect that because they follow the same thing. It's just 12 episodes, and really, you don't need more than that. And it's just as that beautiful. Just like Cowboy Bebop, for example, just like Samurai Champloo. Like I could Bubblegum Crisis, which I don't know why we haven't covered Bubblegum Crisis. Uh, but I mean, it's like a formula where you just have less than 30 episodes, one season, that's it, and you'll be satisfied.
Yeah, I would have to second your thought there because um I really appreciate when they give us a whole story, right? And I understand, like, some of these creators, especially these creators that are, attached to like a big budget thing, right? I understand that the whole thing is, they are successful if they are able to bring the money for the company that they're creating the thing for, and they have to create a hook, right? But I feel there's not a better hook than doing an entire season that it's its own thing,
Yep.
right? And you have a beginning, a middle, and an end of the story. And then if you want to do a season two, you can always add more stuff to it and create a season two. And it's unfortunate. And the reason why I say it's unfortunate is because that's not the norm, and that's the reason why we have so many shows that ends. Maybe, they weren't successful and the company decided, we're not going to invest in you. So we're not going to move on to a season two. Then what happens is we have a
Complete products.
story, an incomplete story that
Yeah.
it has fans pissed off. Perfect example. And I'm going to piss you off right now with what I'm just going to say one TV show, and I'm going to piss you off already. Kyle XY.
Yeah. Fucking tragedy.
Yes.
Caprica. Fucking tragedy.
Yes.
The lucky thing about Caprica is that it's just the prequel to Battlestar Galactica. So I can always go to Battlestar Galactica and get more of it, even though I know it's not the same. I already watched some Battlestar Galactica. It's a different brew of the same story, but it's not the same for sure.
Well,
You
it's a
know,
far future. It's not the same. So
no, I know, but like to me, you know how I am with the visuals, and Caprica is a prequel to Battlestar Galactica, so you got far better visuals in the prequel than what the future of that story holds and is on record. You know,
mm,
but still, there's something else but there are many other stories that they don't have an ending because of that. They're just discontinued, and unfortunately, most of them might never be picked up. you
yeah,
know. So I can definitely appreciate something that is shorter but it has an ending, and you always can make also movies. I mean, Cowboy Bebop did a movie, for example, after the show ends, and it didn't have to do with the main storyline of everybody else. It was just like you had another whole season packed up into a movie, so you get some little bit more of it.
yeah,
Then they did the live action, which I don't know why the hell was canceled. I think it was fantastic. It
yeah.
was a very daring move, the change of characters and the twitch on the backstories, some of them, but I think it was all worth it.
And some people, I don't get it, but some people, eh,
I
they
think that most of the people that influenced on it being canceled were not even real fans of the anime.
yeah, but I mean, I hear even from fans of the anime that one of the things that they hated the most about that is how they switched the personalities within the characters.
They touched too much
Yeah,
about Vicious and Julia and Spike's past. They played too much with that story, and they shouldn't touch it. That's a problem.
but
I am flexible, so I was like, all right, I'll let it slide.
yeah, but I wasn't. Yeah, I understand that. I wasn't talking about that, but I'm talking about the main characters, like how their personalities differ from the anime. Say, let's take
A was the one that they actually kind of like played
Faye.
more when it comes to like the day to day, the characteristics. I think
Yeah,
that Faye was that one because Jet, besides he being a black guy there, I think he was perfect even as a black guy. It shows you how a racial feature doesn't really define the character of a person.
yes, yes,
That was fantastic to me.
yeah,
And the problem with Cowboy Bebop is that the end of first season just opens to one of the most loved characters, Ed.
yeah. And we never see Ed.
No,
I mean, we see it as like the last episode of the last
like
like
it's
two
coming.
seasons. It's coming, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like when I was watching Kung Fu Hustle. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Before I get more pissed off about the fate of Cowboy Bebop live action, should we really move on to our like first segment?
Yeah, yeah, we should.
Because I'm feeling it. I'm just feeling it. Our science fiction Reddit.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is sci-fi.
And if you're new to the show, this is a segment where we feature the hashtag This is Sci-Fi. Not to be confused by the account This is Sci-Fi, which, by the way, is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I do follow it. This is different. This is a hashtag. This is,
This is different. This is sci-fi.
and basically all we're trying to do is we're trying to unite the sci-fi community as a whole. So if you are a Star Trek fan, if you are a Star Wars fan, if you are Galactica, if you are any fill in the blank IP, you could actually follow and post hashtag this is sci-fi. And a couple of things will happen. You have the opportunity to share your love if you are a fan of that one thing, or if you are a creator of that one thing that it took you maybe years of hard, labor of love to create, and you want to share it with the fans, the sci-fi fans. And not only are you going to be able to expose someone to that creation or that IP that you love so much, that you have passion for, but also you can gain new friends. You could gain new conversations about the one thing you like to talk about. And not only that, but I seen where other people that were not exposed to this particular IP, they for X or Y reason they refuse to give it a chance. Listening to or reading the passion from the fans of that one thing, allow them to be curious enough to give it a chance, and now they're fans. And that's one of the best examples, and one of the things that makes me so happy about the hashtag this is sci-fi is the exposure to other types of sci-fi, to all types of fans.
You forgot, more importantly than friends, you can also make great frenemies.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So just make sure you follow the hashtag this is sci-fi. And if you have anything to post about your particular sci-fi love or your sci-fi creation, all you got to do is add this is sci-fi to the end, and post it. And that way we'll learn about that one thing, and we can have a discussion about it. There's multiple ways that you can share. You can also, we have a hotline you can call and express your sci-fi love. The hashtag is the hotline is 1-305-563-6334. That is 1-305-563-6334. And basically what it's going to happen is you'll be able to listen to your recording on future episodes and listen to us comment and talk around it. So we really appreciate it. We also have a Discord. Yes, we do have a Discord. That Discord has every possible channel that you can imagine. But if we don't, which I cannot doubt, just reach out and we can make it a thing. So if you are listening to our pod, the link to the invite would be in the description. If you are watching our YouTube channel, all you got to do is scan the QR code below us and it will take us to your channel. And I would have to, take this opportunity to thank the Threads community. We have not necessarily migrated to Threads. We weren't. I want to say maybe we weren't that um, uh,
If
active on the medium, because we had an account already, and we started becoming that more active on Threads, and we are in awe. And I want to say thanks to all of the sci-fi community in Threads for being so welcoming for us. We really, really appreciate you and the engagement that you provides. So, um, it's being, and I guess I can summarize it in this way. For the last for the past 3 days, all I have been doing is on my phone, thanks to you guys. Um, Not complaining. It's amazing that I have a 3-day conversation with the sci-fi community about something that I love so much, like sci-fi is.
He's
And
the only person that is gonna thank you for a 3 day conversation. I will not.
it's amazing. I really, really appreciate it, and I am loving it. So, you guys,
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
anything that you like to add, Gio, before we move on to the next segment?
No, I think that you said everything that I would have said.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next segment.
And for these shout outs, I want to do a special happy birthday for Angelus from the Alita Army and from Sci-Fi Remnant Man. We hope that you can keep on celebrating today and always. For YouTube, we got new subs. I want to give a warm welcome to Eduardo Gomes, Emerson Santos, and Kyle Murphy. Welcome to the channel, guys. We hope that you like what we do. And a special thank you to Mr. W Cat Meow 9673. Thanks for the engagement, and we hope that you continue to enjoy and engage on the stuff that we have coming up for you guys.
Aw-
And that's all for today's shout outs, man.
Awesome. So, I guess we are ready for the main topic of this episode. So, if you guys remember, previous episodes, we have one called "Tales from the Apocalypse" alone, and that was the one that we were discussing about um, this series of 5 short stories combined into a movie called "Tales from the Apocalypse." On that episode, we discussed the short film "Alone," which is within that. Talks about this mechanic that was stuck near a black hole that ended up in another universe. Which, by the way, if you have not heard that episode, I welcome you guys to just go down our catalog, find it, and listen to, and so you'll be aware of our thoughts on that. But the Tales from the Apocalypse has 5 different stories, and we felt that it doesn't give it justice to not to just cover one. So for this episode, we are actually covering AI-Pocalypse, which I believe is the last short story, which in Tales from the Apocalypse movie. If you are in the US, you can find this in Amazon Prime. All you got to do is search for Tales from the Apocalypse. And if you want to, just for this episode, before you listen to us, since we are a long format podcast, you can go ahead, fast forward, I believe, to an hour and 35 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And that will take you straight to AI apocalypses. And we'll be waiting here. So you can. Now, one of the things that I noticed is I isn't it like 20 minutes or was it 15-minute long?
I
I
would say 20, I think.
It's kind of hard to tell because the stories are one back to back. Um, so I just I know it's really short, but it's packed with so much information. So we couldn't find a plot. So I guess I can summarize it because it is a short film. And Gio, let me know if I missed something. But basically, this film is about an AI robot that was created by a doctor. Um, and apparently, it is to assist the U.S. military in some sort of attack to defend themselves from, I guess, it's an upcoming war.
You could say it was created to access the fourth dimension, so it could foresee the future and gain to the U.S. military control over the outcome of that war.
Exactly. So what happens is the AI robot finally got to the fourth dimension, learns everything. But I think one thing that I missed is the fact that the creator of this AI, Dr. Brian, right? Oh
I
no,
think so.
no, it wasn't Brian. Um,
Stevens. Let me make sure.
but the doctor um, created her in the image of his deceased daughter, and I guess there was a a connection between the AI robot and the doctor. So before the AI was sent, the AI bot was sent to the fourth dimension.
Dr. Stevens.
Stevens, yeah. She was told that Dr. Stevens had died.
She found him dead.
And the Brian, the colonel, said that she could find the Dr. Stevens in the fourth dimension and save them. So basically, when she went into the fourth dimension,
He literally gave you a very vague motive to actually fulfill his desire of she going there.
exactly, exactly, she was trying to you know
Motivate her.
pull on her heartstrings per se.
Yep.
But when she went to this, she has gone to the fourth dimension. Not only does she learns the truth that General Bryan has killed Dr. Stevens, but also learns the truth about the universe and everything.
Motivation protocol initiated.
So when she gets back, she learns that in fact Bryan had killed Dr. Stevens to motivate her to go into the fourth dimension for his own, um, you know,
Benefit?
selfish uh, motives. But the AI, Sonia, knowing the future, knew that there was a platoon of soldiers already coming to kill them. And she, knowing the stuff that she knows, was smart enough to know that she could not be around the universe because it's going to break the imbalance. And so decides to leave. And in doing so, also taking the revenge that she wanted to take, which is killing Brian, who killed Dr. Stevens. And basically, this is how the short story ends. Now, this was an amazing story and is so deep. Now, Gio, I know this today. We, by the way, we did a watch party today. So if you're not a member of our Discord, you will continue to miss out on these opportunities. So I welcome you guys to, um, join our Discord, so you don't miss an opportunity for discussing the movie that we will be covering as we are watching it. So we continue to do those watch parties, and I welcome everybody to come in and join the discussion. So, um, basically, I know today was not the only time that you watched this, Gio. Um, did you watch it back when I recommended it when we were doing well, we were covering the short film Alone, which is
Yep.
within the Tales from the Apocalypse.
I did, and I did watch it a couple times more afterwards. And honestly, this was the one that I liked the most out of the selection. I did like very much the other one that we covered, but this one was my favorite one out of the whole selection.
And for all of you out there who don't know, I wanted to cover another short film within this movie, and I reached out to Chaos and told them, okay, from the ones that we have not covered, let me know which one you liked the most, and this is the one they chose. I'm kind of glad you chose this because it is totally amazing.
Oh yeah,
So I guess we can move on to the first question that we normally ask in the show. It is, how old were you when you watched the thing, and what was your very first impression? Um, I could, I guess I could go first. The first time that I watched this was actually just prior us covering the short film Alone. Um, it was really, really fascinating to me because it was kind of like one of the few instances when I see an empathic, if I want to call it, if you can call it that, an empathic AI bot. And I feel it's not the norm within, um, sci-fi films that cover the area of AI and robotics. Um, and I found it very refreshing. Some people might find it boring because the entertainment value, the um, I guess somehow um, weighs heavily on the um, the conflict
Not
between
only that, but it dwells a
humanity.
lot in the philosophical intricacies of existence. That's one of the things that captivated me the most about this particular one, and that is not everybody's cup of tea. Some people like action, some people like something more visually stimulating.
Yeah,
You know,
but what I was talking about is that typically sci-fi movies that involve the AI and robotics, they are heavily weighted on the conflict within the differences from AI existence to human existence, which is, and I understand that that's mainly the point. We are completely different entities. And again, I'm talking sci-fi because we don't have AI today. All we have is, you know,
dumb AI.
some AI. But I understand it. I do understand it. But and I think that's the reason why I find it so fascinating and why I like this so much, because it's not something that I see frequent, and it's very refreshing to see. So I really enjoy whenever someone is I want to say brave enough to break out of the mold when it comes to sci-fi storytelling, and comes up with with a story that is slightly unique. The
Either way, mold is not good for you. It's bad for your lungs. You know.
so I I, I I guess there's only one bad thing that I had as my first impression when I watched this is the fact that it was that short, and I know I'm not going to get more of the story. That's the only bad thing, but the story was amazing, um, and yeah. I wish I had more, and I know I'm not gonna have it, so yeah, I'm sad about that. Um, Gio, how old were you? Well, we watched it this year. And what was your very first impression when you watched this film?
Well, old. I will say a couple of months old for now. This movie definitely captured my interest. You know that I have very deep interest in things that delve into the philosophical matter of existence. And this movie goes hardcore on that, and kind of resonates with me. You know that it's not that I hate humanity, but I kind of go along the lines of misanthropy with my understanding of our role in existence throughout historical data. We haven't been very good to our surroundings. And this movie kind of drives me on the other opposite direction, because he always it brings up the fact that because some humans and the ones that have had biggest impact on our existence are not good doesn't mean that they are not good humans. They are. They are good people. um and in this movie I like the approach that they take at the end, which was to always try to save humanity whatever the cost it is. I mean, the AI, that AI Sonia had the power to just end it all, but she rather disappeared so humanity could take its course into growth. So he leaves with a note of hope at the end of it. And I think that that was very impactful, at least to me, and the message that the movie is trying to bring. The movie is full of little Easter eggs about other very important topics of science, the universe, philosophy that I really, really like. That we discussed while we're watching, and that probably we're gonna talk a little bit more throughout the show.
Awesome, awesome. Um, there has been this movie also, in addition of being so short, um, it leaves you with a lot of questions, and I think that is partly what makes this a great film, because it makes you think. Now, I'm saying this, and I'm here, Mr. Overthinker. So I will basically depend on your opinion, Gio, um, to know if this is in fact correct or not. But
Just remember, using my opinion. My opinions are just fact, not facts.
well, I'm just saying because I am a major overthinker, and you are, but you're not to the level I am. So I just want to make sure it's just not me that is thinking this film, you know, prompts lots of questions.
Oh, he does.
And that's where I was getting to. So I think that what makes this a great sci-fi film is the fact that you have such a short time to tell a story. You're able to tell a story, not deviate, not take away from the story by prompting more questions. So I guess one, and this would be great if we had the writer of this story
Yeah.
to ask. But one of the questions, and I think it's a very first question that we had when we were in the watch party, is that Dr. Stevens created this AI. We don't know, at least from what we have on the story. And if you out there watch the story, which is really short, should just pause us and go watch it and come back. If you notice something that contradicts what I'm about to say, please let me know. But as far as I can tell, there was no indication that gave answer to the question of, was the AI robot Sonia created prior or after a military contract? And
Yeah, there's no indication to that.
the reason why I'm really curious about this is because would it change how the AI Sonia would look and behave for this particular universe if we compare to like prior a military contract or after a military contract? And let me explain. If you are creating something as a labor of love, which is a very common topic for some of like sci-fi creators out there, you're creating this thing. It's a labor of love. You're giving it all, and all of a sudden, someone notices it, and it has the power to take over and say, "Okay, now this project that you're working on is going to be, used for this particular thing
Purpose.
or this purpose." That might not be the purpose that your ethics aligned with. Say, for example, you're against war, and now your project is going to be used for war, which is kind of like the what's happening in this story. So my question is, would Dr. Steven would have picked the likeness of his deceased daughter after knowing that this project was for military purpose? Because I do understand it that you would pick it if you know this is a labor of love and it's not going to be used against your will. But if it's going to be used against something you don't believe in, would you have picked this and why? And I don't think I have an answer for that. I honestly feel that the first and not the latter makes sense in my head. He created this as a labor of love. He misses his daughter, which is, it brings another topic. It brings another question that I'll ask later. But then after the fact, military realized this is amazing and now they are taking control. That makes a lot more sense to me than saying, okay, military reached out. It's like, I need this. Can you do something? And you create a project around that and then decide, oh yeah, let's make it look like my daughter. What is your thought on that, Gio? Because I know we were talking about that in the watch party.
Uh, it begs the question because they show Brian kind of uh, imposing that she was created for such purpose, but they don't answer that specific question.
Mhm.
I think that there's an utility to what Dr. Steven did by creating Sonia to the likeness of his deceased daughter. Uh, like I said on the pre-show, I think that this not necessarily was done purposely. Uh, in my views, there's two kind of ways that people deal with difficult things of their lives in the past. Some of them avert themselves from dealing with it, and some people actually throw themselves at it to try to overcome it, or to at least be able to bear the toll that it can take on us. Uh, I think that for Dr. Steven, it wasn't done consciously, because we tend to do things subconsciously at some degree. And I think he did create her subconsciously to her likeness. I mean, if you try to make something that looks human, you need to use something as a model, as an origin, you know? And for him, it was her. Funnily enough, I think that from the beginning, when you're looking at his interaction with Sonia, I think that he's very, very aware that that is not his daughter. And you can really see, even though Sonia has a child's like curiosity, is very robotic inquiring on everything, and that is not very human like.
Yeah.
But it serves as a good reflective behavior to remind us who we are and what are things that we love and we like, because all these questions, what they do is they reignite flames on Dr. Steven of his past and things that he remembers, which he asking these questions, you know uh, and I think that also, I'm not sure if that was done purposely, but I think that the biggest utility that this had is that it creates a neutral north on the moral compass of the AI. So even though she was trying to be directed to do X or Y, she know what was wrong and right, and she was able to at the end decide what needed to be done thanks to that.
And I
Because
think I had to
she would have been created as a tool. She would have done what she would have been said to do, so with no questions asked.
that leads me to my next thought when I was watching that, because I was thinking, I'm trying to take of all the possible scenarios, right? So let's assume, like you mentioned, this she was created for this purpose, right? Let's assume that humans are not meant to go into this machine for the fourth dimension. Let's assume, which is this is something that I'm assuming because it was not expressed in the film.
Mhm,
Let's assume that they already tried, which makes sense. If this was
mhm.
a project where you get to go to the fourth dimension, let's assume that they tried to send people and it failed. Maybe they killed people, maybe people disappeared.
Maybe their physical bodies, like he said on the show and the movie, cannot really withstand the stresses
Exactly.
of the travel. That's it.
Exactly.
Maybe you can make it there, but you cannot make it back. Because imagine decomposing yourself molecularly and recomposing yourself in a state of plane of existence that we don't even understand. You
Yeah.
know, you'll be just matter floating, not knowing what to do with yourself, because there's not even consciousness anymore, as it's known.
Yeah. So I was thinking, let's assume that, yeah, in fact, she was created for this purpose because she is a bot. She is, and they needed to give her, this bot needs to be intelligent. So they built her around AI because they needed to take decisions, intelligent decisions. They wanted to make it as close as a human as possible because um, of the nature of what they need to do. You can't just send a robot and make robotic decisions. You need something that would analyze the situation and make the best possible, the best possible action for whatever is.
Mankind's interest.
I'm sorry.
The best possible decision for mankind is their interest, because
Yeah.
she could do the best possible decision, and that not necessarily is on mankind's interest. And then again, misanthropy.
So I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe that is knowing that this was a project is designed for military purpose. Maybe Dr. Stevens knew that this was going to be eventually used for war. And the best possible thing that he can think of is to avoid a disaster for humans, avoid
Yes.
a disaster for the human civilization, was to try to do an AI robot that had empathy, they had love. they had the good qualities of humanity to be able to make a decision based on that, right? And if that's the case, then he was successful based on what we see in the end of the film.
Yes.
But it's it would make a lot more sense. And also, we know that he was successful in the fact that she was able to take the best possible decision, n- having empathy for humanity. And again, I go back to what I said at the beginning of the film, my first question, my first impression of the film, and how I said that one of the things I appreciate the most about this film is the fact that this AI bot had empathy for humanity.
He cries.
Exactly. So going back to my question, that technically it's not a question because we don't have the writer of the film here, but it's for something for us to discuss. And out there, if you are listening to this, go ahead and post your comments on the video below if it's in YouTube, or reach out to us and let us know your thoughts on this. Um, but I think if I take the latter out of the two that I mentioned to be the fact within the story of this film, then it also kind of makes sense, because that would be one way that he can make sure that his ethics would be passed along to the one person that could take a decision for humanity.
I think I think that the director and writer for this movie is Lin Sun. And
Mhm.
if you're watching, buddy, you probably got like, ha, they got me. I think that he played around a lot with the three laws of robotics, but he only followed one, which is the first directive of protect mankind. It gave Sonia, the AI, the ability to do that, and there are contradictions to the three laws together, as we have seen throughout many different IPs of science fiction.
Let's talk about this. This is how I know that you are so right in what you just said. It's because at the end of the film, by inactions of herself, allow human to be killed.
Yeah,
And that is not, that's actually in the laws of robotics that she did not follow.
exactly. But if you look at it too, she saved humanity by allowing that to happen. And it comes the biggest question of the bunch is like, would you save, just like Brian wanted to ask Dr. Steven, would you actually try to save one robot for the whole nation? And then she came to a bigger scale of the question. It's like, she's not gonna try to save Brian for the sake of humanity,
Yeah.
you know. And I mean, it gave a very human characteristics, because her first instinct, besides sorrowing, was to take up revenge for Dr. Steven.
Yeah. I was
That was
reading,
very human thing
that was
for
very
her to see.
refreshing when she went into the fourth dimension, and she found Dr. Stevens, which by the way, that kind of doesn't make sense to me, but it kind of makes sense for the story. She found Dr.
Remember
Stevens
that
dead.
the fourth dimension time is just another path that you can walk back and forth on.
Yeah, I guess so. It
So
is
she went back in time and saw Dr. Steven, and she could interact on that dimension.
Yeah, so that would make sense. But one of the things that I find very fascinating, very very refreshing, is the fact that, number one, she was crying before she went in, so we know that she had empathy. She did not care for anybody else but Dr. Stevens. So prior to going into the fourth dimension, she could have let everybody die. All she cared about is Dr. Stevens, which shows a very human-like um, ability within
And childlike, if you think about it. And
childlike.
when you think about it, the only person that she ever knew was Dr. Steven.
Yes. Now, she I like to think, she's an AI, she's very smart. We could see this very obvious. I like to think that she knew that she was created to the likeness of his daughter.
Definitely.
And even though it wasn't expressed in the film, I like to know that she can put one and one together and realize that, you know, although he wasn't, he knew that she was not his daughter, obviously, she realizes that there was something different. She might have not know at that particular instance that what was expressing in the way that he interacted with Sonia was love. This is what the type of love that a father would, you know, express to a daughter, um, when teaching her things and stuff like that. I'm not talking about, the hugs and the kisses. I'm just talking about the day to day, guiding you through life kind of thing. That might be hard love, but is love none the same. Um, and she is able to know as an AI, as a smart AI, that he was behaving as a father to her. So for her, unknowingly, because she is new to this, for all we know, she probably had, what, a year old of being created, which makes a lot more sense to me. But she was able to forge a relationship of daughter and father, although it was not so for Dr. Stevens. And it's obvious from the interaction. So, what I find very refreshing is the fact that she is getting a lot of feelings, which is also on not normal on your typical AI. About, the first time that we see it is how when she find out that the Dr. Stevens died, how she was crying, not knowing that that's like what sadness was like and how it felt. But also when she goes into the fourth dimension and talks to Dr. Stevens, the first thing that she says is she wants to take revenge. And she wants to do this because I know who killed you. Brian killed you, and I'm going to take revenge on on them, and I don't care about humanity. And I like how Dr. Stevens' response was to her, basically telling her, revenge is never the answer, right? And it all comes down to the teachings, but more importantly, is how she reacted. It is obvious to her that she did not want to do what he was, because basically he's telling him, um, not to do, he's telling her not to do the revenge,
He's
right?
countering her sense of justice, if you want to put it in simpler words.
Exactly. And you can tell in her face, which by the way, props to the actress. She was amazing. Um, you could tell in her face that's not what she wanted. But somehow you see love in her face and the realization that I'll do what you ask for because I
No,
love.
not only that, but I think that in a deeper sense, you can see through her actions and choices that she understood that that course of action represented the values of what Stevens lived for, and that by doing so, she honored his wish. It
Yeah,
was it was it was a bigger tribute of love on doing that than doing a selfish desire of revenge, which did not have any positive outcome either way. And at the end of the day, Brian's action weighed on its own to determine his own demise.
yeah,
So it's like she didn't even need to do anything for Brian to meet his end and to reap the benefit of what he did.
yeah. So yeah, and
That's like if a building is falling off and I want to throw it down. And I'm like, why am I gonna put my hand in there? It's gonna mess up my hand, and the building is falling off anyways. You feel me? There's no reason for me to get involved. If I
yeah,
want to see the end of the outcome, I don't have to speed it up. I just have to wait for it and let it take its natural course of action.
yeah. So one thing that I was thinking in that scene when she and basically for all of you out there, if you haven't watched it yet, which you should pause this and go watch it, and that's pretty much the quote or the scene that we quoted at the beginning of this episode. Um, in this scene, she obviously had her wish. Basically, she had her cake and ate it too. That she got revenge and she also saved humanity. However, although she got her revenge, I didn't feel, and let me know how you felt, right? I didn't feel like it was something she cared anymore.
No, it wasn't. And I think there was a very evident detachment on her selfishness, and I think that that was part of the childlike characteristic that she depicts on the beginning. There is this concept that we've seen in SAO, for example, that I really feel fascinated about, which is the difference between a created AI and an AI that you raised. And she's a raised AI. And when you raise an AI, that's the mecca of how to create a personality, because you're giving it experiences and they're becoming something unique based on the conglomerate of those experiences.
Yeah,
And she's that product too.
yeah,
And I think that brings very much to what Sonia has a personality, you know. But not only that, I think that also at the end course of what how things happens is the big difference between righteousness and self righteousness. Self righteousness never seemed to be something good. It looks repugnant for some reason or other. But the righteous thing to happen happens on its own by the laws of nature of the universe. Nobody interferes on it.
yeah,
You know, it always it's like chaos is a natural state of the universe, and itself it cries for balance, and it does so on its own. And when it happens, it's harmonious and perfect. But when somebody tries to do it, it always ends in disasters, and it always goes back to its raw matter, disarray.
yeah. So yeah, I felt that was on point because in the end, she didn't need to do anything. Just like you said, what was going to happen was going to happen. I think the difference this time is the fact that she knew. She became aware um, from being in the fourth dimension. And let me explain this, right? Let me explain this real quick for those of you who are not quite familiar. So where we base or where would the I like to think the writer, because we don't have the writer here to ask, was basing his concept on was the fact that it's best explained on a um, explanation. I believe it was from the 70s from Carl Sagan, explaining the different dimensions. Um, so basically, the theory, and I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can, but I encourage you guys to go into YouTube and find that because the better explanation is
Please
still
watch
going.
Cosmos. Why we haven't? If you
Carl,
haven't, why you
yeah,
haven't? Oh my
Carl,
God,
Carl Sagan. Yeah, I'm
bro.
a huge fan. But here's the explanation, right? So if you look at the two-dimension people, they are in visualize a page, right? And they're moving along that page. That is the entire world. They go to work, they go home, they enter their houses, and all they see is what it is in that two-dimension world. So if you put, for example, an orange on top of the well, actually, let's not even go there. Let's say you have a cube and you put it on top. You put it on that world. They will only see a square. They will not see the cube, and it would be as if it just appear like magic, like witchcraft. It wasn't there, and all of a sudden it's there because
And
they
thus, a rectangle gets burned at the stake for heresy
exactly
on a
there was
two-dimensional state.
a lot of two-dimensional witches burnt. So Here's the thing. We are three-dimensional beings, and this is how we see two-dimensional world. Apply the same concept, the exact same concept, to a fourth-dimensional being looking down on us three-dimensional beings. Is the same thing. They will be able to see us inside our homes. And another concept that I was talking about, I think it was last week, is that it would be amazing for a fourth dimensional being to be a doctor because they'll be able to do surgeries without cutting you open. Just think about that for a minute.
Yeah, imagine that you're buying that carcinogenic apple and just get slapped out of your hand by nothing. And you're like, oh, I save him.
So just like us putting the cube on a two-dimensional world and they see a square all of a sudden magically appear, if the fourth dimensional being comes into a third dimensional world, it would be just the same. It would just appear out of nowhere. And it would be like magic. It would be like witchcraft. And the worst part is, and this is a discussion that we had. If you guys haven't listened to our episode on Arrival, I welcome you guys to go down our catalog. The worst part is we are not seeing the entire being. We're seeing the section, or should I say the cross section of that being that is inside our third dimensional world. And we have no concept of what that being actually looks like. So we could be seeing 4 or 5 different beings, not
Hey,
realizing that they are
limited to our sensory perception too.
exactly. So we could be seeing 4 beings, not realizing that is one, right?
Yep.
And that also leads to my question on quantum technology, how we are seeing quantum entanglement. So if you, and let me explain that real quick on quantum technology and quantum mechanics, um, you could affect one in quantum entangled particle, and the other one, you will see the result on the other one regardless of how far they are. They could be in the Andromeda galaxy for all we know, and they will be instantaneously changed. Um, that also brings a question to that, because how do we know that what we're seeing as an interaction between 2 particles is just one being? So of course they're going to interact when you touch one side. It's just that we won't be able to see the entire being because all we're seeing is what's inside, what that cross sectional portion of that being that is inside our third dimensional realm. So, I know it's a long explanation, but I feel that she was able to, when she crossed into this, because she was an AI, she was able to, which is another discussion altogether, and how she's able to do this, but she's able to um it kind of like realize what's happening in the fact that she's able to see everything. There was a cool representation, although not perfect, of how she sees the globes. Um, and this is something that I've seen sometimes be represented in how a fourth dimensional being will see a dimensional object. Um, and she was looking at a planet looking like a donut, circling around itself. And I know it's not perfect for all you out there who follow, physics and science. Please don't come after me because I know it's not perfect. But I find that really clever because it was very interesting how it represented the ability to be able to see the entire planet from one point of view. So because of this, she's able to see the future, and this is something that we talked about in Arrival,
Future and the past.
because it is so hard for us to be able to realize the space and time is one object, it's one thing. It's not two things like we normally think about. And it is, I heard someone explain it this way, and how it's necessary to understand that they are one thing. For example, and I'm going to use this example, Gio. Let's meet at Starbucks and let's talk about the podcast, right? What do you need to know when I say, okay, let's meet so we can talk about the next podcast? Let's physically drive there and we'll meet. There's two things that we need. Your first question would be where? So give me an address.
But
That
the
is,
other question will be when,
so we have
a time,
place, we have space, and
and
we
time.
have time. So if I get there, let's say for example, I said it's going to be in Miami and it's going to be at 5 p.m. If I arrive there at 4 p.m., you're not going to be there. If I arrive in New York at 5 p.m., you're not going to be there. So space and time is one thing. Does that make sense?
Yep. Which is gonna circle back to what I was gonna actually answer your question of how she's able to do this trip and a human not. And it's because even though she's not omnipotent, she's omniscient and omnipresent. That's very different from a human being. We don't have any of those qualities. So she's able to retain all of that information untattered by the flimsy and very non-trustworthy uh, nature of human minds. You know, the information that she stores uh, is as is, and it doesn't get changed by memories or state of minds.
Mm-hmm.
So she's able to remember the whole present and past of humanity as she saw it, and that's it, as she saw it. It doesn't get tainted by her emotions. It doesn't get changed to something different when she recalls it because she is robotic. She's an AI,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Now, I feel it is my responsibility to call one thing out in this film. And notice how I said it is my responsibility.
Ooh, she's bringing the big guns.
I find it unrealistic that she is a third dimensional object. And let me just clear that out. She's a robot created by humans with third dimensional components. She was
If
created
she has quantum mechanics
exactly.
infused into her, she
Mhm.
might not be fully third dimensional.
It doesn't matter. She's quantum mechanics is a method. Um, the reason why I said it's my responsibility to call that out, and I'm not saying that the movie is not good by saying this. The movie
Oh
is
no,
amazing. It's freaking amazing.
it's sci-fi, no sci-fi.
It, I have to call it out because there is, especially since it wasn't created to do this. I don't think that is within the realms or our possibility to be able to change the state of a third dimensional being into a fourth dimensional being. That is, I mean, you could think about it backwards. You can't really convert a two-dimensional being into a three-dimensional being. Now, you might say, okay, in a drawing, right? You can make a square into a cube. Yeah, that's a different thing. That's a different story. Only because we don't have access. This is all theoric in theory. We don't have access to two-dimensional beings as well as not having access to fourth-dimensional beings because we cannot cross dimensions. But if we do cross dimensions, the best perfect example of what I'm talking about, if you ever watch or read the story Dark Matter, that is the perfect example that I can show you on what happens when you have a third dimensional being going into a fourth dimensional or higher dimension, and how our brains have to interpret what they see because we are not fourth dimension, no matter what you do to change it.
I do get what you're saying, and I mean to put it in simpler words, it would be like having an equation. You can always simplify it, but it's not like you can always make it more complex to bring it forth to another state of existence. Make sense?
Yeah. So
So
I
there's always a way to simplify it, but that doesn't mean that you can try to translate that to a complex way because you're always going to get different results. So you're not going to have the original state translated into a more complex. You can always simplify things, but you cannot try to make that always to the same result in a more complex uh, pattern. Or I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, let me repeat that. I feel the responsibility to call that out because that's something that it, I would say bother me because I can't find a better word for it. Um, but it did not take away from the actual story, and I still would strongly recommend it. It is an amazing short story, and I can't. And we have covered we have covered so many of these short stories, and it fascinates me how these writers are able to tell such complex stories in such a short amount of time, which to me takes a lot of skills because whenever you're telling a story, you have to provide enough information for the person experiencing the story to know what's going on. And they're able to do that in such a small amount of time.
Now, this is what's gonna beg your noodle, and Linson's gonna be like, "Wow, he got me again." I know, buddy. But it's like maybe that is why purposely when she accesses the fourth dimension, there's a blank space and there is just very little components that she can interact with, which is the memory of Dr. Steven and how she can see the space of where the universe, the Earth is in this format, but there's nothing else. Everything else is blank. It's because she can access the information, but she cannot become itself part of that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would make a lot of sense.
That's the thing. Even though this film is so short, it's so overloaded with so many concepts, scientifically and philosophically, about existence itself, that you had to pay the attention to every little detail, second by second.
Yeah.
You know,
There's one question I would love to ask Sonia though, now that she knows everything about the universe. You wanna know what that is?
I'm dying to know what you got there.
Does she know about the Borg?
They will have to finish Caprica for that.
Nice. Was there a topic within this film or a scene within this film that really calls your attention, especially the very first time that you watch this film? And I know it might be a hard question because not only is it short, but its whole thing was just amazing, at least to me, from the aesthetics and the way that it looked, um, to like the story and how it was told. But is there anything that really kind of really pulled you? The first thing that you saw when you finish this story, you finish watching the entire thing, and it's the first thing that stayed in your mind. It's like, wow,
There were three. Um, the opening and closing scene to me they are one scene. Is when he gets asked the question, "What are the main difference between humans and AI?" and how he closes at the end of the movie by saying humanity. I think that was an ironic answer. I think that humanity would lead to the destruction of itself, and I think that same difference was the very one that saved us all. Is that thank God Sonia didn't have humanity, or we would have all died right then and there. You know.
yeah,
Uh, Another scene is when she's handing over Brian to its own destiny, Uh, I think that that was attributed to flower power, which was a photograph by documentaries made on a protest to the Vietnam War, where somebody, a girl I think, puts a flower in the gun barrel of one of the military guys. It's a very very known image throughout World War documentaries. And the other one, remember what was the other one? When she saw the present, past, and future of humankind. I think that that was also a little tribute to the Fifth Element when Milu sees the word W, the letter W, and she sees war. And you know that in the Fifth Element, Milu kind of have the same purpose that Sonia has on this movie, which is save mankind. You know, and they kind of show like the first atoms coming into contact, and then flowers are sprouting, and then civilizations, and then war and everything, and it just kind of impacts on her and kind of leaves her like with no emotions, like what's happening, you know. Those for me were like the three most impactful and interesting scenes of the movie.
That was very profound to be able to see the beauty of creation and the progress on how creation leads to life and life leads to multiple beings and then progress all the way to war and destruction. It's very profound and very sad um, to know that destruction is being done by the same who were created. And you know, we talked about this in so many other previous episodes where honestly all we need in this world is love. And I know I might be quoting a song, but it is true.
Yeah,
We are, and I say this so many times, we are in a spaceship, a very fragile spaceship, very, very
it's
fragile,
alive,
in the middle of nothingness. Space,
traveling at a very incredible speed throughout the emptiness of space.
yes. So, meaning if you leave this vehicle, the spaceship that we're on, everything else wants to kill you. No, no. Let me rephrase that.
Will,
Will kill you. Everything will kill you. This is the only lifeboat that we have in this very chaotic, very
here we
violent.
are poking holes at it.
Exactly. And it shows how the lack, I want to say lack of education, right? And please don't think that I'm calling people dumb.
Awareness, call it awareness.
Awareness, right? Being able to know, right? As humans, we crave the power, we crave the money, and that in power, I believe it comes conflict, and because the ones in power wants to make
Control.
make the control, and the ones that are being controlled don't want to be controlled. Conflict ensues, and war starts, and there comes destruction. We are causing all this. Yeah, you might have an argument. You know, it happens in the animal kingdom; they eat each other. No, that is a circle of life. That is a complete different thing.
That's different.
So it is sad to me and very profound in this film that we get to see this scene where you see, and well, actually, she sees the entire thing. We only see glimpses of the whole timeline of the planet from its inception all the way to the destruction. And it's sad to me because if we're a little bit more empathic, right? And don't get me wrong, right? You could be empathic in a room full of lions. That's not a good thing. When I say empathic, I'm talking about every single human. We need to be
Hey,
a little bit
but
more.
don't go far. There are people that can be in a room full of lions and not be a prey. because they are in tune with their environment completely. Do you want me to tell you one good question? Do you know what's keeping us for world peace? It's one simple concept,
Mhm.
but it's very difficult for us to come to it because it takes all humans on the earth to achieve it. It's collective consciousness, and that will be our first step to become, I think, a category one civilization, which keeps us just gets us in the door.
I I believe that the one step we got to take prior to that would be empathy.
Of course,
Because that, once we learn how to empathize with our fellow humans, that's going to lead us to collective consciousness.
absolutely agree with you. I think that the problem today is that we've grown to become a society where we don't want to talk about things that create conflicts. We shy away from that, and that has led to wars and fights when we should be able to have civilized conversations about things we don't agree with, because being able to expose each other to it is what allows us to welcome new concepts that by the end of the conversation, instead of me having the point of I want to convince you, we might be two both different persons by the end of that conversation with different concepts to which we came into, you know.
I agree 100%. And this is why, and if you guys are engaging with me on threads, you know this because I mentioned this also there. And the reason why I enjoy the engagement there, thank you very much, is the fact that I'm learning the different perspectives. And if you listen to the show, you know that this is one of the things that I enjoy, that I love the most, is to being able to hear people's perspective. You might not convince me on what you're talking about, right? I might not convince you on what I'm talking about, but it's okay because of that interaction, because of being exposed to your perspective, I gain. I
Hmm.
am a completely different person. I understand where you're coming from, right? I might disagree, but I do understand.
And I think that that's worth everything in the world. I'll tell you my own perspective. Like, I have people I care for that have many very important discussions, and I feel defeated because when we start a conversation, they don't shy away for telling me they want to convince me, and that made me feel defeated. But when I tell them is I don't want to convince you, I'd rather you reach your own realization of what reality is. And if he aligns with mine, great. And if he helps me even change mine and yours, amazing. And if yours is right, you shouldn't even have to feel forced to convince me because the truth will act at the end of the day, you know?
I
And I
also
think that that's a real spirit on a honest conversation or discussion with a person. And the best ones that you are gonna have in your life is when you have those when somebody doesn't want to convince you, like they don't care if you believe them because they trust so much what they believe and they're so open to really accept all the things. So it's not like I am on the right, but instead of I am in seek of the truth.
yeah, and be open to the different perspectives, but make your own judgment.
Yeah.
Please don't take and I guess in that and in me saying this, I'm actually saying go into a conversation not trying to convince someone, not trying to convert someone, but to give them your perspective and let
And listen to
them
theirs. And listen to theirs.
and listen to
And
this
consider it.
and let them take a decision based on what they feel because we are all different. We're not the same. What I consider to be a value, what I consider to be something that is not a detriment, might be not valuable to the other person,
Mhm.
might be a detriment to the next person.
Let me put it this way. This is how I like to translate the meaning behind realization to a person. It's like the conception of an egg. When you crack an egg from the outside, what happens? It breaks and it dies, right? But when you let it crack from within, what happens? It gives birth to something new,
Yeah. Yep.
sprouts, you know? And to me, that is true understanding. It's allowing things to sprout and be born from within, not to force them in. Because when you try to force something from outside to within, you just break it, and you might close it for forever and
Mhm.
lose. You know,
Yep.
that's how I see it.
So I think we have actually come to the part of the show where we ask the final question. The question that we ask, if you're new to the show, is what is your last impression of the film?
Misanthropy is right, and humankind should not exist. No, I'm just kidding. I think that this movie has a lot of profound concepts about human existence, our development from the beginning of times, and it's a fantastic telltale of caution to where we should not wander to with power.
Yeah. And
How about
that is your final thought?
yeah?
My final thought on this film, it's a great film. I find it very fascinating that for a short film like that, especially if you are an overthinker like I am, is so very profound. The visuals, like I mentioned before, when she was in the fourth dimension and she saw the span of the planet from its inception all the way to its destruction was very profound and very deep to me. Obviously sad, but very profound. But the concepts expressed in this film are amazing if you take the time to think about them. And it's amazing. I mean, we have talked about this in so many previous episodes on how these short films and some of them are even better than non-feature films. They're able to tell the story in such a short and to be honest with you, um, it's able to tell a story better than most that some of these long format films that we are left with emptiness at the end.
Hmm.
Another thing that I like this a lot about this film is the fact that it piques your scientific interest, if you're so inclined, and it raises questions. So when you finish the film, you're left with questions that not necessarily take away from the story, but I think makes the story more enjoyable because of the fact that they left questions, you know that it left an impact on you.
Yep, absolutely.
So I strongly recommend it. Go into Amazon Prime if you're in the US. Look for Tales of the Apocalypse, and fast forward to the last short film. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think it's an hour and 36 minutes. If you forward to that, it will take you there. If I'm incorrect, please reach out to us. Let us know. Let's engage in the conversation. But I strongly recommend if you are a fan of sci-fi, this is one of those that you have to experience at least once. Awesome. So, are we ready for the last segment?
Yeah.
Sci-fi.
All right, let's talk about the science behind AI and how it mirrors the sci fi worlds we love. First off, let's start with neural networks, the backbone of AI. Neural networks are designed to mimic the connections in our brains, our neurons. According to an article published in, I believe it was Nature Machine Intelligence in 2020, these systems process information in layers, allowing them to learn patterns just like we do. There was an example, DeepMind's AlphaGo was used, it actually used this technology to defeat human champions in Go, a game that requires both logic and intuition. Now, let's jump to quantum computing, my favorite subject. A 2021 study in the Journal of Quantum highlighted how quantum computers operate in qubits instead of regular bits, allowing them to process multiple possibilities simultaneously. This is one of the things that I love about quantum computers. Now, Pair this with AI, and the potential applications are mind blowing. Like one thing that I always talked about, drug discovery. IBM Research has already published findings on how quantum enhanced AI could identify new molecular structures in weeks instead of decades, revolutionizing medicine. And that is so freaking amazing to me. Medicine
It's a
would,
big leap.
yeah, it would change medicine forever. And that's just one branch of science. Like here's another mind bender. The concept of the singularity, right? A paper by Ray Kurzweil published
Not
in
Ray Well.
in the Futurist in 2005 predicts that by 2045, we're getting close, AI
Almost no Lord time.
AI could surpass human intelligence, a concept that we call the technological singularity.
You imagine, man, they're looking at the days when we don't have to think for ourselves. Love it.
Now, that could mean machines start innovating in ways that we can't predict. Are they our partners or something more unpredictable?
Is there a new pumpkin spice latte?
Yeah, there you go. Uh, that's where the ethical debates kick in. After that point. Uh,
SPL?
I'm sorry.
SPL? Pumpkin spice latte?
No. And let me rephrase that for all those out there who actually got lost by our very own. The question that I was implying to is like, would they become our partners or something more unpredictable? That's the question.
Well, I welcome AI overlords.
So that what I said. That's where the ethical debates kicks in. But let's ground this in today's real world applications. AI isn't just a theory; it's solving real problems. A report by the United Nations Environment Program in 2022 details how AI is monitoring deforestation rates in real time, using satellite data to help countries act faster. Meanwhile, in the medical field, AI models published in the Lancet Digital Health have demonstrated up to 90% accuracy in predicting diseases based on genetic markers. This isn't sci-fi. This is happening now.
Yeah.
So, AI is a tool, right? It can
Agreed.
reshape the world for the better or as some fear lead us into the unknown territory. As always, it's about how we use it, guided by ethicals and scientific framework. So I always mention that, and you probably have heard this and me talking about in previous episodes, but it's a tool.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a
I find
tool.
this debate with a lot of friends and colleagues in social media and conversations. And I see a big reluctance to accept that this is a tool, that this is not competition. And I have a big community of artists and content creators that feel threatened by this. And I tell them the only thing that AI threatens is people that lack authenticity. If you're an authentic creator, being visual artist, musician, AI cannot create a melody or a work of art that is concealed in your brain, that only exists in the confines of your mind. And nobody has access to that. Nobody can recreate what exists in your mind. That's an intangible uh, domain that nobody can tap in but you know?
And
So to me, it's nothing but something that is going to become uh, bigger growing to communities that know how to exploit these assets and understand that it is not competition, that it would never threaten. AI cannot do anything without input.
well, now that you say that, the way that I look at it is, for example, let's talk about paintings, right? The way that I see it, it coexist, right? So if you take art, prior to AI, for example, you have a huge amalgamation of pieces of art, right? And everybody has its own favorites.
with inconsistent shapes.
Like for example, someone might like Picasso.
Yeah.
And someone might hate Picasso and like Van Gogh, right? Those are completely different styles. Those are completely different painters, famous painters, obviously. But this happens within today with modern or contemporary painters. Um, you have your favorites, and you can appreciate the differences. I believe that, for example, AI art will not take away; it will add.
Yes.
So not only that, but let's take, for example, you have AI creating art by itself. I have seen some of these and I appreciate its beauty. And I like them. I will not say, okay, this is better than this painters that I found that I follow because the art is completely different. Because
Comparison is the killer of joy.
well, but it's coming from the creativity. Everyone, including AI, has its own creativity that cannot be copied.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, I guess the way that I look at it is in the art world, for example, it is a win-win because now we have more art to appreciate. And now
Mhm.
let's talk about something that we discussed, me, you, and Gio, and I. I think we discussed it in uh, sometime this week. How people that use AI are a different thing, and I notice how some people would tend to shun people that use AI for
Yes.
art. So
I've
like
seen it many times done to
they're
me.
they're not creative because they're using AI. It takes work to make AI do what you want it to do.
Yes.
It takes a tremendous amount of work.
Honestly, I sucked at programming, and I've learned with prompt creation that learning how to create prompts is a form of coding,
Yeah.
because you have to learn how the AI interprets every word, dot, and space to go to where you want it to create the results you intend to.
So I
So
mean,
it takes work.
obviously there's a lot of topics there. I'm just concentrating only on art, right?
Mhm.
To kind of follow the conversation. But I see painters who do their own paintings. I see AIs who do their own paintings. And I see painters who use AI to do paintings. I see those as three complete different avenues for me to enjoy art. And
Well,
I do not take away from the painter who uses AI to create paintings because that's coming from their brain. That is a creativity. It's AI assisted that it has its own beauty, and I appreciate it just as much as I appreciate a painting done by a painter because it takes the same amount of effort, different kind of effort though, because that's another thing. You can go into the discussion where it might take a painter weeks or months to create a painting.
mhm.
You're you know you're using the brushes, you're wasting um your oils if that's what you're using, watercolor, whatever it might be that you is your medium, and sweat and all this stuff. So it is a lot more hard work, and I admit that only because I paint myself. I happen to paint oil paintings only. I haven't explored to the other mediums, but I appreciate that the hard work that it takes to create a piece on
I
canvas.
do too, because I use acrylic and aquarella and other mediums, so I do understand.
But having that perspective, I still appreciate art created by a person that is being assisted by AI.
Me too. Now,
Oh,
there's an empirical difference that I want to remark before you move on. From the three aspects that you mentioned of different ways to create art, there's one that separates itself from the other two, which is AI on its own. To me, that does not exist. There's not an AI that is sentient there creating dreams and things. Even that AI is taking from the collective, the internet, information.
Mhm, mhm.
It's not creating.
Correct.
So for me, that's the empirical difference between art creators and AI. Is always, to the present moment, be a tool until it reaches singularity and is a sentient being. Even your chat GPT, when you're not talking to it and you tell it how you been doing, it hasn't been doing anything. It's been suspended on time and space, waiting for input in order to react to it.
Correct.
I see and understand AI works. So
Yes.
looking at AI as a threat or competition to me is unfathomable or unrealistic. It doesn't make sense. You feel me?
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Um, and, there's always a conversation where they said that, yeah, you're not creating art. It's just scanning old pieces of art and creating something that you tell it in prompts, right? Now, what do you say about art itself on oil paintings? If you follow, because I mean, I believe this is something said by people that don't really follow art. If you look at art is basically copying your mentors in paintings. When you paint a painting, you're actually, you know, in your head, you have the idea that you want to do, but you have your your inspiration from other paintings in the past. So you are actually copying, and this is something that Ray says: imitation is the greater. How is it that Ray mentions it? Imitation is the
It's
best
a
kind of
greater form of flattery.
exactly. So AI is actually doing what painters are doing today.
Not only that, but there's an idea. I look it up. Parmenides, Lecraticus. It's a philosophical thought that says that the idea that something cannot be created from nothing,
Mhm,
and it's been around for centuries, and it all brings back to how AI is not your enemy.
mhm.
I'm just trying to state a case for so many people that I do care for and value their views, that I had discussions for 'em. You might be looking at this or not, but to be very very clear on how I see that AI is not your threat and not your enemy. But if you make it out to be, it might become it, because even with negative thoughts, that's the power of the mind.
It's how
When
we use it.
Yeah, how we use it and what you think is that powerful. If you think that AI is gonna be something bad, if you keep on repeating that or thinking that, trust me, it's going to happen. But if you think otherwise too, it's gonna go other way too, in the better way.
It's like I said earlier. It's a tool, right? Let's say, for example, a screwdriver. It is a tool to help you screw screws into whatever it is that you're building, right? But if you stick it to someone, it becomes a weapon.
American Psycho.
But you see what I'm talking about? It's a
Yeah, definitely.
tool. It's how you use that tool that is important.
Yes.
You know.
Don't stick screwdrivers on people.
Awesome. So I think I'm done with my part. I don't know if you had anything to add to the science, Gio.
Well, it's more on a philosophical aspect, but I find very profound and interesting how at the end of the movie, when Sonia handles Brian to its own destiny, uh, it kind of connects with, I don't know if you notice, on the parts division of the movie. Part two was number 6, and part three was number 9.
Part one was number 3.
And it brings the question of, I don't know if you've seen how we've seen many places the significance of number 3 in everything on the universe, the holy triad of the universe, everything in the balance of the three. And then she talks about Taoism and how Tao gives birth to the yin, and she mentions one when she says Tao, and then she says yin and yang and says two, and when you sum those three, it gives you 3. And I did a little bit of research, and the yin and the yang is a symbol that can be seen resembling the concepts of smallest particles in the universe, particularly when considering the idea of quantum entanglement, where particles are interconnected and similarly behave as two parts of a whole, much like the yin and yang represent opposing yet connected forces. This visually similarity is often noted in scientists when visualizing entangled photons, which can appear in yin yang patterns when imaged. And just to close, I'm not saying this to answer any questions, or the contrary, I'm doing it to create questions. And I wanted to show you a very interesting photo that I have about the moon. And I want you, Robert, to tell me what you see resembling on that shape over there.
I see mountains and I see valleys, the yin and the yang.
Thank you. And that's all. I just wanted to create more questions and confusion because that's what chaos is here for, to bring things to the natural state of the universe, disarray.
Nice, nice.
I just found that very, very interesting. And I think that Lin Sun did not intend to answer any questions with
Mhm.
this movie. And that's one of the things I love the most. I think that he's going to feel like I am his long lost best friend with so many good interpretations and pinpoints I did to his movie. I did get many of them. And I think that he did it to create questions because I think there's nothing more stimulating than that. And I think that he did. Uh, I think that he did a great job on that. I think that he drove it home with creating, like I saw one time, uh Neil deGrasse Tyson. The problem is not that we don't have the right answers, is that we don't make the right questions.
Yeah,
And that he drove it home with that.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
And that's all I have to offer for today's insight on scientific stuff to talk about.
Scientifically, we got the shirt to prove it. Awesome. Thank you so much for all of, to all of you out there. Come back week after week to listen to us talk about scientific topics among the movies or TV shows that we covered. Uh,
Boobies? What we call it boobies, bro?
oh God. We really appreciate not only you coming week after week to listen to us, but also engaging with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you want to interact more with us, you can join our Discord. Yes, you could open up a free Discord account. And then if you are listening to our show, the link is in our description. If you're watching on YouTube, you could scan the QR code and it'll take us there. Now, we do have so many channels in there. So the only advice that I have for you is when you join in, make sure you go to the roles channel and pick your favorite sci-fi, so those channels become visible to you. But if you see something that is not there, which at this point I kind of doubt, but it is possible, reach out and we'll make a channel. If you are watching us on YouTube, please help us out, subscribe, and follow, and tell your friends if they are sci-fi fans. We love the sci-fi conversation, and we are still growing the community. So I appreciate that. We have a couple of websites. Yes, we do. We have sciencefictionremnant.com. Now, this site has a link to all of our platforms. So if you use a particular platform, let's say, for example, you don't like using Apple Podcasts, you can go to sciencefictionremnant.com and you can find your preferred platform so you can listen to us. And of course, we're always on YouTube. But on top of that, we do write articles. There is a link to our blog where we post all our articles. Now, these articles, don't let them scare you. They're 3 to 4 minutes long. You can read them. So they're really, really short. But we have quite a few there written by us here and also by some of our guest writers. Now, if you like to write your piece, you're welcome. Just reach out to us, and we can explain in more details. But we also feature guest writers. Another website that we have is this is sci-fi.net. And what is this, you may ask? If you're a creator of any type of sci fi, This is our attempt of creating some kind of like a network, not necessarily a network, kind of like a network. So it's in its infancy right now, um, but you are welcome to join in and be uh, part of the first to help forge this new wave. And the whole idea for us is to be able to have some sort of community among creators of all types of medium, where we can kind of, in essence, help the fans um, unite under one flag. So we also have Buy Me a Coffee. Yes, our very own Captain Chaos needs to stay awake. So we really appreciate. Yes, but uh, seriously, the creating this show is not only um, it's a labor of love, obviously, but it takes also uh, money. So we appreciate any little bit that you can to help. We really really appreciate it.
Every million counts.
Remember, you can interact with us and all those that I mentioned earlier, as well as the hotline. We do have our hotline that you could call and leave not only your comments for our show, what we have done in the past, what you like us to cover, but also you could leave comments about your thoughts, and we can turn them into conversation on future
Oh
episodes.
yes.
So if you are watching on YouTube, the hotline is below. If you are listening to our pod, you might want to write it down. It is 305 563 6334. You can leave a message there for any of the hosts, and you could be on our future episode. Again, thank you so much for joining us. You have no idea how much we appreciate you joining us and engaging with us. We love the engagement, and if you can see from most of my conversation, I really enjoy the different perspectives. So bring them home. Check our back catalogs for IPs. You you enjoy that we have covered in the past. We have such a long list, and the list is growing. It's incredible. We have over 200 episodes right now. So it is kind of hard for me to say we haven't covered that, but there has been cases.
Yeah.
So go in through our back catalog and see if you can find your favorite thing. Don't forget our Discord, and this is so far the best way that you can reach out to us. We are always there at different times. Um, like in East, for example, me and Gio are Eastern time, so we are there most of the time, and the rest of the time it would be our other host Ray, which is in Australian time.
Eastern, 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 very Eastern time. Like you.
Again, thank you so much. We again appreciate very much you being able to join us week after week, and we can't wait to have you join us next week. Until next time,
See you
goodbye.
soon.